Hey everybody, it's Wes, and this is the Dollar Dojo. This is our very first stream, so if you are watching and tuning in right now, it means that you're probably doing so with the video on demand. In which case, an extra special thank you for coming and checking out today's stream. Hope that you'll go ahead and hit the follow button, come hang out on a regular basis. This channel is purely an outlet for me to share what I do as a software engineer, to share my 20 plus years of experience with whoever wants to hear it out there on Twitch. We also have a Discord available where some of my very close friends, colleagues, peers, and otherwise all hang out, and we share ideas and code and tools and thoughts and all sorts of other stuff. So you're invited to come check out the Discord as well. You can type !Discord to get the link there in the chat. I think the chat works video on demand. I can't really remember. Anywho, I've actually been doing this for almost 25 years. May will be the close of my 25th year. So I'm excited to spin up this channel so that I can really get everything out that's in me in terms of experiences. There's two ways to gather experiences in your life. It's to have your own, and it's to borrow experiences from others. So I really hope you'll come and hang out on a regular basis so I can share some of my experiences with you, share things that I wish somebody would have shared with me maybe 15 years ago. Sure would have probably saved me a lot of headache and probably even got me a little further along. So I look forward to sharing those things with you. But without further ado, let's get into what we're gonna be doing. All right, so I've got this command line tool that I wrote that spins up an Express, Docker, Postgres, and MariaDB instance. The command line tool itself takes in one little command. It's the quote-unquote quick start command. So yarn, the name of the command, and then quick start, and it literally spins up a Docker instance, or Docker spins up, I believe, if I recall correctly, I'm the engineer and still barely remember. It spins up 3 different Docker containers. It spins up one for MariaDB, one for the Express server, and then another container to serve as the home for our headless UI. So really it's geared towards projects that are adhering to the microservice pattern in a completely headless UI. Hence why it's set up that way, but it does give you the option to choose between Postgres and MariaDB, which I thought was a cool little feature. And all that by way of Docker, as I said. So really cool, but I wrote it really quickly. I wrote it over the course of a day while I was in between meetings and whatnot. Also, I just remembered I didn't fix the lip sync. Darn it. So my lips are moving completely different than the words coming out of my mouth, and I'm so sorry about that. But anywho, I won't get sidetracked on that, or will I? I don't know if it actually updates for you guys, if I update it here, but maybe. There we go. Maybe that helped. I stream my music as well, and typically the offset, if I recall correctly, is like 175 milliseconds over on that setup. So hopefully I just guessed right, and maybe it updated in real time or whatever the case may be, so that we're all lip synced up. That would be awesome. Anyways, actually, as I was saying, I wrote this in a day, and so it's very procedural, so to speak. You can see here that that I literally have comments to break up the different sections of the code, which is not ideal. Obviously, we would much rather the code tell a very clear, very concise story. Hence why naming conventions are so important. And you will hear me talk about naming conventions more on this stream, but if you tune in on other streams, you'll hear me talk about name conventions a lot because they're extremely important. So anyways, if we had engineered this properly, or that is to say following best practices, I suppose, then all this would be extracted out and the code would read much cleaner. We want to keep the cognitive load as low as possible whenever we're writing code, so that when we come back, I like to talk in reference to 6 months me, which is to say, when I come back to the code 6 months down the road, it needs to be really easy for me to pick back up where I was, understand what was going on, and get back into the groove. If the code looks more like this and less like this, it's a lot harder and slower for me to get back up to speed to make the changes that I need to make or extend the functionality however I'm intending to do so. But it's also more difficult for my colleagues or whomever else may be working on the code base with me to understand what's going on as well. So anytime we can reduce cognitive load, that means that we can get through things quicker. We understand it quicker and better. We don't walk away with headaches or being completely mentally gassed after just looking at one file of code for, an hour. Instead, we can be clean, concise, use proper naming conventions, as well as organization in our file system to make our lives easier, help us move quicker, etc. All those wonderful benefits. So anyways, I suppose I can show you the diff of this file real quick. Maybe. Oh, I could just click on it, but apparently not. I'd rather have it in the editor for you, but this will work. So you can see how much code we've removed. We had this entire try catch statement. We were logged into the console, and we just replaced it with copy config to-do list. Is the one that we're looking at, or I'm looking at right in front of me, and in front of you for that matter. So all of this got extracted out into more appropriately where they belong, which would be files of themselves. And we'll talk about the naming conventions that I use there in a minute, as well as the philosophy, for lack of a better word, behind why I organize my files the way I do and subscribe to what I call the one function per file design pattern. So you can see all the code that we removed. And I did this exercise with another young gentleman that I'm mentoring. And so I'm halfway through, essentially. Boom. I know how to exit Vim, I swear. But I wanted to share the rest of the refactoring here on Twitch because there's enough left that it won't get super boring, because refactoring in how I'm about to do it is honestly kind of monotonous. Mainly because it's the same steps over and over. You highlight a block of code, you extract it, you create the new file, you paste it in, you reference that file, import it, blah, 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 and you're off to the races. And so I'm actually not even really testing this as I go. I know after years and years and years of refactoring, I know that I'm not breaking anything as I'm going, so I'm at least going to give myself that benefit of the doubt. But I'm also going to come back in and write unit tests as well. The unit tests are going to show me pretty quickly if I did refactor something incorrectly. That way, whenever I go to run it for the first time, it just works, which is always nice and gives me warm and fuzzies, and I enjoy it. So, anywho, I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we'll get to it. Also, I don't notice if you noticed in the chat, but I hadn't been live for more than, I don't know, probably a minute, and had a spammer pop into chat, so that was fun. All right, so obviously with these two commands, let's see what we're doing. All right, spin up a Docker container for service, Postgres PGAdmin. Oh yeah, that was part of the third Docker container that pulled up. It has a PGAdmin embedded in it as well, and if the user embedded in it as well, so that you've got the GUI for the database. All right, so this is synchronous call. We know that this is synchronous. We're going to instantiate the gateway stuff. We're going to loop through while we have length. We're just calling console. We're just waiting for stuff to spin up right here. Literally waiting on Docker. All right, and then we're going to get the gateway IP from PGAdmin. That could probably be its own function, but we'll deal with that in a minute. Or method, whatever you want to call them. All right, and then we start playing with SQLize. All right, so this is the block right here that we're going to go ahead and refactor first, because it is dealing with spinning up a Docker container and the related services. There's a couple different ways I can do this. I can do it the manual way, or I can do it the way in which the editor is going to hold our hand a little bit and refactor it for us. So I'll show you both ways over the course of this. I don't leverage the refactor tools inside of Visual Studio Code as much as I probably should, but I also don't like the naming conventions and code style that it uses, and I'm yet to figure out a way to hack that or override it. But as soon as I do, I'll start using it a lot more frequently, I suspect. All right, so we are setting this PGAdmin gateway IP. Let's see where all that is used. So we're on 134, 158. So it's used a few different places. And so we are going to have to return a few things out of this. Looks like including... Nope, not including that. All right, so I think the only thing that we're going to have to return out of this is the PGAdmin gateway interface. So I'm going to go ahead and const that up. Gateway interface. What am I talking about? PGAdmin gateway IP. Is that what it was? Let's go double check that. Measure twice, cut once. PGAdmin gateway IP. PGAdmin gateway IP. Cool. And the editor, of course, is getting pissed off at me. I want that autocomplete back, please. Boom. And we'll call the function here. We'll deal with that in a second. I don't need the comment because this is ultimately going to be self-documenting code. Let me go ahead and first show you how to do this with the editor's tools. For this particular case, we're going to extract this completely out of the file. So we're going to extract first to the module scope. You'll see that a few things are going to happen. We've got our new function, which we're going to call it spin up Docker containers. I like to be very explicit with my naming conventions. I don't care if I have to use 10 words. I'm going to describe exactly what the function or method or variable, whatever the case may be, is doing or what it is. That way there's no ambiguity. Ambiguity leads to tougher code that is less manageable, harder to maintain, more difficult to read. There's a whole lot of reasons why we want to... sorry, I'm reading as I'm trying to talk. There's a whole lot of reasons why we want to be very explicit in our naming. But to sum it up, you just want to avoid at all costs ambiguity. That way the code is doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is telling a story. It reads like a book. All right, so we've got the spin up Docker containers. Visual Studio Code seems to think we need a service name, which we do, and a DB select, which we also do, and it is init. And I just saw that right there. So the only one that I properly identified was PGAdmin gateway IP. Now, obviously, if I would have cut that out, I would have gotten a bunch of red squigglies, and that would have been my indicator that, hey, ding dong, you need these other three as well. Visual Studio Code was smart enough to identify that for me, and so therefore saved me a little bit of effort, and is probably a good reason why we should leverage our tools that are at our disposal. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Prettier is going to auto format it for me. I'm going to go ahead and const this up and get rid of this comment. And let's go find where I put that guy. All right, now what I'm going to do, because we're following the one function per file, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go to refactor again. And I'm going to go to move to a new file. So now if we scroll back up, we have the reference to our new file, spin up Docker containers, and what's this thing bitching about now? Used before its declaration. I'm not destructuring that. Why does that matter to me? Oh, did I miss something? I don't think I missed anything. Let's go see why it thinks. Okay. All right, I don't know why it thought we needed that, but we definitely don't. This should be a string. This should also be a string. Then I believe this is a Boolean, but let's go double check that. Is init gonna, whoops, F12 to that. Options init, oof. All right, let's leave that in any. I don't like using any, but we're gonna leave it in any because that is what Commander, the blah, 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 blah. The library that I'm using underneath the hood is Commander for this CLI. That is available here. Commander.js. Boom, I'll drop that into chat. Except for the fact that I cannot use my keyboard shortcuts inside of OBS. I gotta turn the accessibility on. All right, back to code. All right, so now we've got our goods all in shape. We're gonna save, Prettier is gonna format. We don't have any linting issues. This is just a warning. By the way, I use a highly customized set of linting rules. However, when it comes to formatting, I use Prettier. I think that's pretty much become the standard for JavaScript, TypeScript, whatever we want to call it. Prettier I leave completely stock, mainly because it's already documented it very well by Prettier themselves. And so whenever I onboard somebody to my new team, instead of having documentation that I have to maintain regarding our code formatting and the customizations that we've used for Prettier, instead I just leave it dead stock and tell them to go read the damn Prettier docs. It makes life easier for everybody. However, with ESLint, because of the feedback that you get in the editor, and because there's really, there are recommended packages that you can get. ESLint putting out their own, plus people like Airbnb have one as well. You can borrow those, but they're still just recommendations, and there's really no standard. Unlike Prettier, there is a standard, there is a default formatting for everything. It's apples and oranges essentially. So you can see how customized all the rules that I've either added or changed. And the reason for that, I've been adding to and updating this lint file for probably 5 or 6 years now. And it's available on my GitHub, github.com/westdollar. You can pop over there and grab this as well. But what I've learned over the years is ESLint, coupled with this highly customized set of rules, has actually become a really good mechanism by which I can teach and train my engineers, because there's a lot of feedback that you get in terms of best practices or syntax issues or whatever the case may be. Anywho, I digress on that. Let's jump back over here to the spin up Docker container. There's a few issues that I have with the refactoring tool, which I kind of mentioned earlier. I prefer the fat arrow syntax, and so I'm gonna do that right now. And it's just a personal preference, because I'm weird mainly. What am I doing? I suddenly have forgotten how to life. All right. I still didn't get it. What am I doing? Guys, even after 20 years, you can't get it all right all the time. My formatter should be playing with that. Spin it up, Docker containers, AC. Why am I having a complete and utter brain fart right now? It's great. Probably because when I am being watched, I can't code, let alone halfway think. Const hello world equals. There we go. I just had to be smart for a second. Boom. Get rid of these and let the formatter do its thing. Delete that. All right. So syntactically, that is the style that I like. And then there's another issue that I have here as well. Notice that everything is kebab case. This generates a file name that is camel cased. I don't like camel case in my file system, mainly because it's a little bit more difficult to read. So I will instead come in and make this kebab case. Kebab case just means that it's separated by the hyphens, as I'm doing right now. I'll save that. Yes, I should have hit always on that. And we're just going to call this a helper. Always. Thank you. All right. So this is now what I call a helper function. I'm sure I'm not the only person in the world who calls it a helper function. But essentially what we've done is we've created now a reusable function that if we had more commands in the future that need to spin up a Docker container, it's already got, for lack of a better word, an interface to do so, thanks to this helper function that we just created. And so helper functions are just that. They are meant to serve a helper. Think things like date formatting, money formatting. Maybe you've got one for standardizing your error responses that you return from your API. Helpers can be anything and everything. You could have more subdirectories within your helpers directory so that things are properly namespaced. Again, we want to make sure that we're paying great attention to our file system to organize as best and as much as possible so that it's super easy for ourselves as well as others to intuitively get throughout the file system so that they can find what they need. For example, on the front end, if we have a components directory off of source, I know that that houses all of my components. And then if I see a buttons directory underneath components, then voila, I have all of my buttons. And so as a new engineer, I can go see what buttons are available to me. To that end, the reason why I like one function per file is because now I have a representation in my file system that I can see very, very easily all of the functions that I have available at my fingertips that I can go use within other parts of the code base without having to open up a file that has, say, 10 different functions or methods in it, and I have to go through and read all of them to understand or to know what all options are available to me as an engineer to reuse code that has already been written that serves a specific purpose. And so as you can imagine with these helper functions, we want to keep them very, very small. We want to keep them as close to single responsibility as possible. If their responsibilities become more than one, then we should probably further refactor and create other helper functions, perhaps namespaced accordingly, so that my brain forgot where I was going with that. So anyways, since my brain just took a left while I was trying to take a right, let's get back to doing some refactoring. Where'd we leave off? All right, so we've got the spin up Docker containers. We don't have any errors at the moment. So here's our spin up Docker containers. The next thing we're doing, we're checking if this is our first run. If so, we need to generate our Sequelize config file. Sequelize is an ORM that I like to use. I highly, highly recommend it. If you're not using an ORM, what are you doing with your life? And I'm so sorry, you have been missing out and doing shit the hard way. So go get you an ORM. Sequelize is a great one if you're in the TypeScript world, JavaScript, whatever. You know what I mean? All right, so we create the file, we write the file, and it doesn't look like anything needs to be returned. So I think what we're gonna do, let's see where this terminates. This terminates right here. I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna ultimately end up with 2 if checks. We're gonna take this code exactly as is, and it's gonna, no, we're not. I just lied. We're gonna let this house all of its logic. We just need to tell it if we're running for the very first time. I'm gonna go ahead and use the refactor tool again, and I should learn the keyboard shortcut for that. Always learn your shortcuts. It'll save you a ton of time. All right, what was this thing doing? Spinning up the DB. Let's see, spin up database. Spin up and configure database. All right, that appears to be synchronous, which is great. And I'm getting an ESLint notification because we haven't fully extracted this out yet. So let's finish extracting it. And then I'm also going to get yelled at by a linter for having so many parameters, but we'll fix that in just a second. And we're going to move to a new file like we did a minute ago. Let's go ahead and open that up. Let's switch this over to fat arrow syntax. That was much easier that time. This should be saying, yep, too many parameters. Maximum allowed is 3. No big deal. We know for a fact that, we still don't know if that's a Boolean or not. We know the service name is a string. We know the DB selection is a string. We know the password is also a string, and then the IP a string as well, apparently. The DB port, let's go look at that real quick. I'm pretty sure that comes in as a string as well. Let me get some feedback. All right, DB port is a string. Cool. All right, that took way too long. That's okay. All right, now I don't have a choice. I could bring this in as an object, but to me, that's not quite as readable. And in this particular case, it's no harm, no foul that I'm doing this. It's not gonna, this being that I'm disabling this rule for this line. I don't want to do it for the file. I just want to do it for the line. That's very, very important. Don't disable a rule at the file level, because then you're just going to break outside of the standards accidentally. And always make sure that you include the rule that you're disabling. Don't be lazy and just do this, because that disables all rules. If you just put ESLint disable next line, kebab case, then it disables all rules. You want to make sure that you specify the rules. That is something that I look for very, very closely in code reviews. Is anybody that's trying to bypass any of our automated tooling that we have in place that maintains the integrity of the code base. Those things are there for a reason. They're there to help us all. So don't disable them. It's a terrible, terrible practice. But there are some times, like this one right here, where it does make sense to disable it, but I'm being very specific about the rule. And I also understand why the rule is there. We won't go into that maybe in a future stream, but I understand why I'll do a whole stream breaking down my ESLint rule set, and I'll go super deep into why the rule is there. But anyways, if you know why the rule is there, and you can see, because of your knowledge of the rule, that it's not going to cause any possible damage to the code base in any way, shape, or form, then it is perfectly valid to disable the rule. That's why the hook to disable rules exists. But we always want to be very, very cognizant of the rule, why it's there to begin with, and know what we're disabling before we disable it. All right, let's go ahead and finish our cleanup task. We're gonna put this in helpers. We're gonna turn it into kebab case. This is that repetitiveness that I was talking about. All right, spin up and configure database is done. Spin up and configure. All right. We don't have any reg squigglies below, so that means we're doing something. All right, so now we run the DB migrations. I'm gonna extract that out as well. All right, so let's go ahead and refactor. What is that? Control-Shift-R. Wow, that's weird for my hand to hit. Control-Shift-R is the keyboard shortcut for that. Highly recommend learning your keyboard shortcuts. It's going to speed you up. I can't stress that enough. All right, seeding database. All right, we're going to call that run database seeds and migrations. We're going to go ahead and extract that function. Whoops. I don't like collapsing code either because OCD. We're going to extract that to a new file. Everything updated there. Let's go ahead and drag this where it belongs. And again, database, seeds, and migrations. Cool. All right. No red squigglies. No red squigglies. We're good to rock and roll. All right, so the next thing we're doing is firing up a Typescript watcher, and then we're gonna spawn yarn, and then we're gonna log out the data. There's absolutely no need to refactor that out. That would, at that point, be over-engineering. This tells us exactly what is going on already. We could just look at the comment, or not even the comments, the console log out and see that we're firing up TSC Watcher. We're going to spawn a yarn TSC Watch. So this is going to fire off another command asynchronously, I believe. Nope, it's synchronous. So that's going to fire up. I'm just confirming it's synchronous. Yeah, it's synchronous. Okay. I didn't want to tell you wrong. Not on the first stream, at least. We'll wait until later streams to mislead you, I suppose. Gain your trust and then, steer you wrong. I'm just kidding. I would never do that. All right. So back to what I was saying. We spawn the yarn command so that we go ahead and get our watch command, which is in our package.json. Let's go look to see what all that does. TSC watch. It just does the one and only thing. It spawns up the TypeScript compiler and simply watches it. By the way, all of this code is on my GitHub, and we're going to push up these changes as soon as I'm done. GitHub.com/$, and then look for the Express Docker Postgres MariaDB. I believe I also have another repo there that is just Postgres, which is an earlier version of this code. All right. That obviously lacked that functionality to choose your own adventure between MariaDB versus Postgres. All right, so we are done, it looks like. I don't see anything else that needs to be refactored. And so now let's walk through this code and see exactly what the code does. Does this code tell a story? All right, we've got some stuff going on. Who cares about that? When I'm scanning code quickly, you're about to hear what's going through my head and what I'm looking at when I scan code. Part of my efficiency is a result of being particular about my code style. I'm particular about my code style so that I can very, very easily send my eyes across it and get a very good understanding just by scanning, not reading, but by scanning the code, of where I'm at in the code, what I need to slow down and actually take in, or if I can just kind of keep going. And so if you don't hear me say anything about it, it's because I've literally basically skipped it in my mind. So first thing, we create our file system directory, and it's called dist. If this is a rerun, so not the initial run, we're going to copy our figs to the distribution directory that we just created. If it is the first run, then we're going to get the user's name. Then we're going to ask the user. This doesn't quite tell the story, but I know because of my familiarity with the code base. Plus I can infer from user is ready to begin what I'm about to get here. But essentially what's happening with this, if we dive into it, is it's just Commander sending the prompt across so that the user can confirm that they're ready to begin, and that comes back as a string apparently. So now we have our answer to is init. All right, so, well, actually, no, we don't, because isn't is different. Anyway, so they want to continue. We're going to collect the environment information. Let's see how we do that real quick. It's more prompts, okay? And the keyboard shortcut that I'm hitting to get back and forth between these is function F12 and control minus. Function F12 takes you into the definition of something. Control minus brings you back to your previous cursor point. In later streams, I'll be sure to turn on my keystroke logger. That way you can see all of the commands that or shortcuts that I use, because that is one of the huge differentials in terms of my efficiency versus a lot of people's efficiencies, or I guess less senior engineers would be a good way of saying it. All right, so now we grab our DB password. Don't know how we're going to use that, but we'll continue to read the code and then we'll know. If the user is not ready to begin, then we kind of kill off the process, tell them goodbye. Then we create a Docker compose YAML. We install our yarn dependencies. We generate our env file, and we can assume that goes into our distribution directory, maybe. Nope, that would go off a root. Why would it go into distribution? That was a dumb thing to say. All right, so we generate our env file. We create our Husky hooks. Husky is a package that allows you to manage your Git hooks. And so, for instance, I used the pre-commit hook to run the test sweep, TypeScript compilation, code formatting, and linting. That is the baseline for my pre-commit hooks in every project that I spin up. And then I may do additional things depending on the code base. It's another automated way to ensure the integrity of the code base. That way we can run all of those checks before code even gets a chance to get committed to the branch, and worst case scenario, get merged into develop, or even worst case scenario, gets merged into the main branch. All right, so if the user has requested that if we need to install the yarn dependencies, then we go ahead and install all yarn dependencies. Then we spin up our Docker containers, and we spin up and configure our database. That uses some of the data that we've seen pop up, like this PGAdmin gateway IP. We run our database seeds and migrations. We fire up our TSC watcher. We fire up yarn, and then we open up our standard out. We log everything out as we get it in real time as part of the buffer. And then we also give the handy dandy feedback that, hey, your server is now running, here's support, you can click on it. And with this CLI, since everything is configured, we have seeded the database with seed data. We ran our migration so the database structure gets there as well. All of that's managed in code. And I'll show you that here in 1 second. The second that we get done with the quick start command, we can actually go hit the UI. We can go hit the PGAdmin interface. We can hit Postman and get a response back from our endpoint. The command line tool does all of that. Super slick, makes spinning up new projects, new teams very, very easy. I'm super passionate about developer experience. I want to make sure that all of my engineers have the most optimal developer experience that they possibly can. That way their work lives are much, much better and they don't dread fighting the code base, or even worse, dread coming to work. I want everybody to enjoy what they do, and I want us all to have a shit ton of fun in the process, and help each other grow. Each one teach one type mentality. I can learn as much from a junior engineer as they can learn from me. It has happened many times over the course of my career. If I can learn from a junior developer, so can you. All right. Oh yeah, I was going to show you the database migrations and seeds. So our database is managed via code thanks to the ORM. And so you can see here our migrations allow us to interact with the database structure. So create columns, drop columns, create table, drop table, etc. And so you'll see here that I've got a create product, and this is a naming convention that SQLize enforces. SQLize in and of itself has its own command line tool. And so that this naming convention comes straight from the command line tool. And in fact, all of this can be scaffolded out by the command line tool if you're a power user of the command line, which I highly recommend becoming so. As a result of this being an auto-generated file, it doesn't adhere to our code formatting. I can tell that because we don't have the space here, but I've disabled prettier for this directory, which is why we're not getting any error feedback there. The counterpart to migrations is the concept of seeders. Seeders allow us to stuff data, whether that's data to instantiate the database or to get the project running, or maybe it's demo data, or even just test data or development data that needs to be in there. But it's also a very, very efficient and clean way, in my opinion, of managing production services as well. Whenever we manage something in the code base, we have a record of it inside of our version control system, in this case, Git. And so we can see over the course of time, not only in the Git logs, but we can also see in the file system itself, all the changes that we have made to the database through the years. Yes, that means we get a lot of files in there, but they're obviously handy dandy time-stamped for us. And so we're able to, what year is this? Okay, for some reason I saw this 21 and I thought I wrote it in 2021. I was like, no, that's not possible. I can't believe I wrote it in July though. That's mind-blowing. That's really mind-blowing. Feels like it was yesterday. It's been over 6 months ago. Damn. All right, anyways, out of that rabbit hole we go. Oh yeah, so the seeders, and the migrations for that matter, you can leverage your CI/CD pipeline to actually execute these commands. All it takes is installing the SQLize CLI as part of your CI/CD tool that you use into the container, whatever, however you have your CI/CD set up, and it can actually execute your migrations and seeders such that anytime a change is made, your CI/CD pipeline takes care of that change in production for you. And so nobody is directly accessing the database. If there is an error, then it's a one-line command to roll back the changes in production. Now, obviously, that would require one of a few things. It would require access to the production services, or you can have a protected endpoint that you could call via Postman or whatever the case may be, that would run the command for you. That's the way that I recommend, but obviously that is a huge security concern if it's not properly safeguarded. So I would limit that down. Certainly if you have any sort of SSO provider, I would certainly integrate that into that endpoint, or at the bare minimum, some super secure hashing, salt hash, encrypted password type thing. Or you can go all the way and do an OAuth with something like Passport.js, which is an OAuth 2 package. Fairly easy to set up. But anyways, point is just make sure that you protect that endpoint. And even better, yeah, never mind. Skip that dumb thing that I was about to say. All right, so we have made all the changes that we're gonna make. I'm gonna run my git status, check, see what all we did. Let me go see what changes I made here. Okay, I just modified that quick start command for some reason. What's the diff on that guy? Boop. Oh, I just removed the Husky install. Wait, what? Oh, okay. I switched it from yarn to use npx. That way the user doesn't have to have yarn installed on their box, although I highly recommend yarn over npm these days, especially with the PNP that yarn 2 introduced. There's just no reason not to use yarn. In fact, when I switched several of my projects to yarn, the CI/CD pipelines got cut in half. And that was consistent. My projects typically run multiple pipelines. The first pipeline is right there inside of Bitbucket or inside of GitHub or GitLab, depending on which I'm using. That runs everything that our CI/CD pipeline is also going to run. That way, if there are any failures or anything that's going to stop our CI/CD pipeline, we have the opportunity to catch it before it even gets to the CI/CD pipeline. So you can imagine that saves quite a bit of time. Without having that pipeline in place at the repository level, then it ends up getting to the CI/CD tool, whatever the case may be. You have to wait for those servers. You have to wait in queue if there's a lot of people using it at the same time. And then you have to click around in the UI to figure out that you got an error. You got to, in order to know that you have an error, you got to reference the UI or hook it up to Slack or whatever the case may be, which are all good things, right? But if we can stop it before it gets to our CI/CD pipeline, we can shave seconds, minutes off of our day. And if we're shaving minutes off of our day, that adds up over the course of multiple days, weeks, months, years. Holy shit. Wow, the Spirit 1997. Welcome. Glad to have you. That sound alert scared the holy hell out of me. You're the second follow, so appreciate you being here. My name is Wes. This is Dollar Dojo. I'm a software engineer. Instead of telling you everything, I have a handy dandy command for it. So there you go. Glad to have you. You're our first follower that is not my wife. So appreciate you dropping by. Appreciate you dropping in chat. No need for you to apologize about the sound effect. That's me. I just didn't know it was going to happen because you're the first follower that I've had on stream. So a special thank you to you. Hope that you'll come back and hang out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But super glad to have you. We also have a Discord where we have conversations like this as well with a bunch of mentees that I have. So please, awesome. So the Spirit 97 said they too are a software engineer looking to learn, which I can appreciate. I'll drop you the Discord link. Feel free to hop in there. We have conversations throughout the day. Dollar Dojo, you can imagine this being the first stream. I'm still getting everything set up. The Discord is still small, but it's a group of people that I've been mentoring over the course of months, but more likely years. And then we're adding people like you to it, should you choose to jump in as well. That way we can build a community, and you can be a part of said community, learn from each other. But it's my way of giving back too. I tell you all a lot of the things that I wish somebody would have told me 15 years ago, because it would have saved me a lot of bloody foreheads and I'd be a little bit further along in my career. And so it's my way of paying it forward. I love my people. Everything I do is for my people. It's why I'm so passionate about developer experience. And so any way that I can pour into others and help them achieve their career goals is a super passion of mine. So glad you're here. All that to be said. Not sure when you tuned in, but we just got done refactoring the command line tool that I wrote apparently back in July. It seems like yesterday. But we just got done with that. As part of that, we talked about my concept of, not just mine, it's other people's ideas as well, but single function per file. That way you can easily see what functions or methods are available to you. Either as a new engineer to the code base or coming back 6 months down the road, trying to figure out what all you have at your fingertips that you've previously used that you can continue to reuse throughout the code base. Because obviously we want to keep the code as dry as possible, which is to say, do not repeat yourself. If you missed all that, hop back into the video on demand. I did enable that, and so you can check that out. I'm also going to be uploading these videos to YouTube. I probably will upload this one tomorrow, but it'll be available, obviously, Twitch video on demand as soon as the stream ends, which is going to be here in just a few minutes because I got to go get my daughter. She turns, actually her age doesn't matter. But I am going to go pick her up here in a few minutes and hang out with her. But I will be streaming over the course of the weekend as well. I really wanted to get to playing with Copilot today, but I did not get to because I'm just simply running out of time. One of the huge selling points to me of GitHub's Copilot, their AI pair programmer, was that they tout that it helps tremendously and excels at doing code coverage, so unit tests. And so I'm going to take this same code base. I don't have any unit tests at all created for this thing. Typically, I require all of my teams have over 80% coverage. I strive for 95 or above. Because I wrote this in less than a day, I didn't have time to put unit tests in place, and also why I needed to come back in and refactor the code now 7-8 months later, because I do want to extend this, use it as a foundation to get more tools like this out, both for my teams, but as well for anybody who wants to grab it. They can grab it from NPM or Yarn. So anyways, I'm gonna pop back on stream over the course of the weekend and play with GitHub's Copilot and actually see how well it does pumping out unit tests. Because if it does a well enough job, if it gets us probably 75% or more of the way there, unit tests are often one of those things that are completely overlooked, completely just disregarded and thrown to the wayside whenever we get into a time crunch as a team or as an individual, or maybe we're just being lazy and don't want to do it. But I can tell you that writing unit tests is well worth the time and the endeavor, because you're inevitably going to actually save yourself a ton of time in the long run. Even during the development cycle, the unit testing can keep you from having to switch back and forth to the browser in case that you're writing the UI, or in the case that you're writing just a RESTful API or whatever the case may be. You don't have to bounce back and forth to to Postman. You can have all of your tests as such so that you're following best practices using mock data, mock functions, etc. You can identify a lot of errors in your code before you even get to using whatever the user interface is, whether it's a UI, that would be your browser, or in the case of an API, something like a Postman. So I highly recommend getting very, very comfortable with unit tests. I typically don't like to refactor code like I just did without having unit tests in place, because it's obviously risky. In this particular case, I know the code well enough, it was straightforward enough that I just went ahead and refactored it anyways, because that's going to actually help me write my unit test a bit more efficiently. One of the huge reasons why I subscribe to the single function per file philosophy is that it also helps write unit test a lot easier, because you're only dealing with one function in the file. Which means that, again, if we're doing things the right way, our function is very, very small. As a matter of fact, I'll flip back over to my editor. As I flip through these, you can see just how small my helper functions are. I mean, I'm not even having to scroll. This is the first file I've had to scroll, and it's only because of the way that our formatter formats things. If this were all in line, I wouldn't even have to scroll for this. And so this obviously makes it a hell of a lot easier and quicker to read and digest. But in terms of getting your code coverage in place, the code is already so well organized and so slimmed down that you're not having to worry about mocking 900 things or setting up all sorts of data in order to make your unit test function properly and be written properly. So it's just a good method of architecting, and in my opinion, the ability to name things intuitively as well as organize your code base in the file system intuitively is one of the hallmarks of a great architect. And so if your goal is to get to that senior level or beyond, or maybe even move into a purely architectural role as a solution architect or insert title here, it's a must that you know how to name things intuitively and know how to organize a file system. I can't stress the importance of that enough. So the Spirit 1997 said, totally agrees. He follows OOP standards and single responsibility. Yep. And use Jest or Mocha for unit and integration tests. Yep. I honestly don't write a whole lot of integration tests. The only time I do is around critical functionality, like super business critical functionality. Otherwise, unit tests, if we're being modular and following best practices and things like our single responsibility, which comes from the solid design patterns, solid being an acronym, single responsibility or SLOVs, blah, 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 extend only. Let's see what that is. I used to have it all memorized. Stands for single responsibility, open close principle, which means, never mind, I'll drop this in chat or you can Google it yourself. Whomever would like to see it. Oh yeah, I can't paste in chat, so I'm not going to type all that in. Interface segregation principle and dependency inversion principle. Solid is incredible. It changed my game as an engineer. It's one of those things that if you just go spend some time learning Solid and what it means, you're going to immediately level up. So highly recommend that. Yeah, Solid's hard to remember, man. But it's hard to remember what the 5 are, but it's really, really easy to take away all of the information from it. So you don't necessarily have to remember every bit of what Solid is at an acronym level. You just need to be familiar with the concepts. It's one of my biggest principles that I push, because it covers so much ground in those 5 little categories. Also, if you've never checked out the book, The Pragmatic Programmer, I encourage you to go look at some of the videos online about the Pragmatic Programmer, or pick up the book. It's a really, really easy read. They also have excerpts available on their website that they make available for free. That is a book. They use Java as their code examples, but it's basically language agnostic. They just chose Java as their code examples. But just reading that book will level you up immediately. Yeah, Uncle Bob is awesome. Been in the game forever and has contributed so much to people like me, no doubt. I'm also a music producer, and I get really, really confused because there's a Mr. Bill that is kind of the musical version of who Uncle Bob is, and I'm always like, Uncle Bob, and I get super confused. Which, by the way, I don't know if the audio is good or not, but the song underneath that's just playing on loop is one of my songs. So it's one that I actually created this just earlier today with my mom. She dropped by and we worked on that song together, which was pretty cool. Grew up in a very musical family, so it was nice to be able to share that moment with her. All right, so I am going to go get ready to get my daughter. Again, the Spirit 97, congratulations, and thank you so much for being our first follower other than my wife. She will forever get the crown of first follower, but you're the first on-stream follower, which is also really, really cool. Really look forward to seeing you as well as anybody else that may be tuning in or catching this on video on demand. Look forward to seeing you all again on stream or in the Discord or over on YouTube. We're going to make this a really regular thing, especially as I begin to transition into a new role with a new company. I'm going to have a lot of prototyping and just stuff to play with, and I'll be streaming all of that as well, because obviously I have to prototype and evaluate tools to understand what is going to be beneficial to my team, what's going to actually enrich their lives, what's worth spending the money on. There's obviously a fiscal side of it. And so I'm going to be streaming, playing with all those things. Plus my wife and I are building a product together. It's going to be a portfolio piece for her as a product manager or product owner. She's in the industry as well. And so we're actually going to engineer that right on stream as well. So lots of content on the way. So come back, all of yous. Definitely appreciate you being here. Every little view, every little chat helps us small streamers. So it means the world, and I love to share this information with you all. So excited to have you, and we'll see you again real soon. Thanks so much to Spirit 1997. Thank you everybody else who's hanging out. Thank you, especially a big thanks to all those who are checking this out video on demand. That means you've been very intentional with spending your time with me by streaming this back. So really appreciate that. It means the world to me. I love you all. Keep writing good code, and we will see you on the next stream. Cheers, everybody.